Let's talk about the U.S. sanctions on Russian oil. Despite these sanctions, the black gold market didn't go crazy as expected, and the ruble's exchange rate remained stable. But the situation is still far from good for Russia. In short, there are plenty of aspects worth paying attention to. Please don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. During Donald Trump's second presidential term, the first sanctions he announced targeted Russia's oil sector, the main source of funding for its war. Following the imposition of sanctions on Rosneft and Lukoil shares, their value dropped sharply. The combined market capitalization of these two companies decreased by $5.2 billion. More than half of Russia's oil exports come from these two firms. Vagit Alekperov, one of Russia's richest men who owns 28% of Lukoil, lost $1 billion in just 2 days after the sanctions were imposed. The U.S. sanctions apply not only to Rosneft and Lukoil, but also to 34 companies associated with them around the world, making the situation more complicated. Now, companies fearing secondary sanctions may refuse to do business with these firms.
Lukoil announced the sale of its foreign assets due to sanctions. The sanctions have begun to show their initial results. According to Reuters, Chinese state oil companies have stopped purchasing Russian oil. India has also stated that its oil companies will no longer buy crude oil from Lukoil and Rosneft. Considering that China and India are the two main buyers of Russian oil, it is clear that Moscow is now facing serious problems.
The global media described Trump's sanctions as ones that even Biden didn't dare to impose. Indeed, Democrat Biden had avoided imposing sanctions on the oil sector, which is most vital for Putin, believing it would infuriate the Russian president. But as we can see, nothing has happened. Putin is calmly meeting with local officials in the Kremlin.
Trump has promised to closely monitor compliance with sanctions against Russia. He even plans to discuss this issue with Xi Jinping during their meeting tomorrow. Russia has been living under sanctions for quite some time and has become quite skilled at evading them, for example, through the use of a shadow fleet. However, if the U.S. truly tightens control, such evasion methods may no longer work. Perhaps during the meeting, Trump will offer the Chinese leader a deal to ease some tariffs in exchange for not buying Russian oil. After all, Trump didn't impose any sanctions right before his meeting with the leader of Pyongyang, did he?
There's another point that should not be overlooked. Trump is now trying to force India and China to stop buying Russian oil. But as the world's largest oil consumers, what will these two countries replace Russian oil with? Will Indians stop fueling their cars? The world doesn't have an excess of oil. Replacing Russian oil is nearly impossible. The Russians know this, which is why they remain calm. Moreover, Russia exports a huge amount of oil to the market. If such a large producer is cut off, prices will skyrocket. Trump doesn't want to bring global embarrassment upon himself because of sanctions. Most likely, the U.S. president wants to use restrictions on the oil sector as leverage to pressure Russia. Of course, this issue will be raised during his meeting with the Chinese leader. And here's an important point to note. In our previous video, we mentioned that the U.S. and China discussing a war involving Russia without Russia's participation itself is painful for Putin. Now, these two giant states are about to discuss the issue of Russian oil, again, without Russia. In the past, it was hard to imagine Russia standing on the sidelines while the world discussed the most important global issues, especially those directly related to it. But the war has changed everything.